Yesterday I said I'm not going to go after the president and the Gang of Six and whatnot yet because I don't know the details. And at that point, as we went onto the air, at noon Eastern time yesterday, I didn't have the details. The details are out now, and there's two really conspicuous points. One is the details don't have a lot of details. In other words, there are a lot of vague generalities in this thing, and a lot of stuff is getting tossed off to Congress, committees, commissions that will do their dirty work in secret, and it will be dirty work. It'll be cutting government programs for the neediest and the most vulnerable among us. That's the work that it'll be. And there's no shortage of corporate-owned Republicans, and for that matter, corporate-owned Democrats who are willing to step up and do that. Tragically. Secondly, I'm going to go through the details here in just a second. And third, I want to make this point, and this is really important. And you would not know this if you watch the corporate media or listen to the corporate media or whatever it may be. You would not know this. There is a difference between important and urgent. The only reason the Moody's is talking about down-rating us. Standard & Poor's is freaking out. Bond rating agencies are hysterical. All this drama, all this Sturm and Drang is being created in the U.S. media. The only reason all this is going on is because every year, and sometimes more than once a year, Reagan had to do it 18 times in the 8 years he was president. When the administration and Congress spend more money than they're taking in, they have to borrow it, and borrowing ever since 1917, when Congress first passed this law that said in order for Congress to borrow more money, they had to authorize themselves to do it, and they have to specify what the ceiling will be, beyond which they will not be able to borrow money. This is not part of the Constitution. This is simply a law that Congress passed 4 or 5 generations ago, and that's been largely ignored. It's been, the debt ceiling's been raised over 100 times. As I pointed out, Ronald Reagan raised it 18 times without so much as a whimper from the Republican Party. George W. Bush raised it 7 times without a whimper from the Republican Party. It's just a housekeeping detail. Now, the fact that our nation is going deeper and deeper in debt as the result of the Bush tax cuts and as the result of 2 undeclared and unpaid for wars and as the result of a $600 billion overrun program in Medicare that says that the government has to pay full retail price. Aspirin's $1 a tablet or whatever. You've got to pay full retail price for drugs purchased for senior citizens rather than negotiating the wholesale price where you go in and you say to Pfizer or Merck or whatever, hey, we're going to buy 1 million penicillin tablets this year. What, we know your price on 1 tablet's $1.50. What's your price on 1 million? Oh, 3 cents? Fine. We'll take them. It's what the Veterans Administration does. It's what other agencies of the government do that buy in bulk. It's what state governments do. It's what the insurance companies do. But it's not what Medicare can do. Medicare is constrained from doing that. They're absolutely prevented from doing that. And if we blew that off and we said the federal government can negotiate prices, you save $600 billion over 10 years. The Bush tax cuts account for 1/4 of the total deficit right now. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan account for another 1/4 of the total deficit right now. The recession itself accounts for about 1/4 of it. So if we could get out of that by getting unemployment down, everything would be fine. I mean, this is like, and then Medicare cost overruns and things like that. Well, that's the drug plan. So anyhow, what the Republicans have successfully done is they've taken something that's important. Yeah, we should deal with this. And they've turned it into urgent by saying, if you don't deal with this important thing now, we're going to blow up the country. As I've said over and over and over again over the last, I don't know how many months, this is like that old National Lampoon magazine cover where they had the dog with a gun to its head and it said, buy this magazine or we'll shoot this dog. So anyhow, to the details of the plan. And this from, by the way, courtesy of Senator Bernie Sanders. The Gang of Six plan reduces the top marginal income tax rate for the wealthy Americans and most profitable corporations from 35% of corporations, wealthy Americans 36%, to as low as 23%. That's about a third lower than the Bush tax cuts. In other words, this is even worse than the Bush tax cuts. Instead of reforming the alternative minimum tax, that's for people who are, well-to-do but not wealthy. People who are making $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 a year, and they've got a lot of loopholes and deductions and things, and they may not be paying any taxes. So alternatively, here's a minimum tax. You got to pay at least this, right? Instead of reforming the alternative minimum tax to account for bracket creep over the last however many decades it's been since it was put into place, they're just going to do away with it, which is a major tax cut for the $100,000 to $400,000 a year crowd. It reduces the deficit by $3.7 trillion over 10 years, but it gives a net tax cut of $1.5 trillion, that virtually all of which goes to the wealthiest Americans and most profitable corporations. In other words, 100%, I'm quoting from Bernie Sanders, in other words, 100% of the deficit reduction achieved by the Gang of Six is through spending cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, education, child care, Head Start, LIHEAP, low-income heating program, the environment, and other programs that the sick, the elderly, the children, and working families need. Time to call the White House.